Welcome to our podcast, Living Our Best with Memory Loss. What makes this podcast unique is that three of its hosts, Bob, Denis, and SuAnne, have a memory loss diagnosis. The purpose of this podcast is for people to share their experiences with cognitive decline. It is not to provide medical advice. We are not doctors, and we stress that what might have worked for one person might not work for others. If anything you hear on this program inspires you to explore treatment options, we recommend you do so in consultation with your physician.
Hi, welcome to our podcast, Living Our Best with Memory Loss. Now, if anybody knows me, they know that I'm obsessed with Deborah Kahn and her website, beingpatient.com, and also her podcast. In complete transparency, I love to go to beingpatient.com and watch some of the experts that Deborah often features. And if I need to hear more from them or didn't get quite enough, I reach out to them. So Deborah, thank you for being such a great resource for us. One of the people that Deborah featured is Dr. Gregory Jicha. Dr. Jicha is a leading researcher for Alzheimer's and dementia. Currently, Dr. Jicha is a professor of neurology at the UK College of Medicine and the senior investigator at the Sanders Brown Center on Aging. Now, Dr. Jicha has agreed to be on two of our podcasts, one this week and one next week. Today's topic is diet, Alzheimer's, and the most recent studies on how one affects the other. So I guess, Dr. Jicha, first of all, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I'm delighted to be here this morning, and diet is always one of those things. If we're talking about eating good food, I'm all on board. If we're talking about not getting to eat the things that I would like to eat, then we can have some debate on it. But it's always finding that happy medium, and we'll talk about that today.
Okay, well, that sounds great. Can diet really affect our brain health?
Yeah, so this is really a fundamental and really, really important question. And part of the reason why this question is so important is that it's really hard to do studies on diet. Why? Because people cheat, and they don't want to tell you. Uh, and that makes it very, very difficult. But clearly, there's a wealth of evidence epidemiologically, which means just studying people in the population over time, those that eat what we consider some of the more healthy style diets have a reduced risk of developing dementia and increased longevity. So there's this concept of blue zones in the world, and the blue zones are areas where people live to be over 100 years old, and there are many different factors that seem to influence that, but diet is one of the major issues here. And of course, our brain is very complex and has some firm requirements for essential nutrients that our own body can't make. We must get from the food that we consume.
And what are the ones that are essential for optimal brain health, Dr. Jicha?
As far as foods, what
Yes.
foods are okay?
Yeah, so there are several that are essential, but one of them that I think is we don't pay as much attention to as we should, and that there's a lot of misunderstanding about. Includes the omega-3 fatty acids. These are actually essential. Human beings cannot make these on their own. We think of them as being components of fish oil, but the omega-3 fatty acids actually are plant-derived. They're first created by plants, by algae, and then the plankton eat the algae, and the little fish eat the plankton, and the big fish eat the little fish, and so on and so forth. So really, really important. And there are two essential omega-3 fatty acids that we tend to focus on: eicosapentaenoic acid, which is very good for heart health. There are some cautions about that for people that are on blood thinners for their heart conditions to begin with, but overall, eicosapentaenoic acid. But DHA for the brain is incredibly important. This is a fatty acid where If it is deficient in the diet of a newborn baby, the baby will actually grow up with an abnormal brain development. Very, very important. And that actually led the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, in the 1990s to mandate that all infant formulas were supplemented with DHA.
I
Very,
had no
very,
idea.
yeah,
Wow.
very important to keep our nerve cells fluid to enable them to form new connections and to reach out. And if all we have are fatty acids that are saturated like bacon grease, our whole brain would congeal. And you can just think about that. Do you want your brain looking like congealed bacon grease in a frying pan? Not me.
Let me ask you a question then. You're saying fish oil. Now, is krill oil the same as the fish oil?
Yeah, so krill oil, the same sort of thing. It contains those same essential ingredients: the EPA, the eicosapentaenoic acid, and DHA, the docosahexaenoic acid. It's just derived from krill rather than from fish itself. And one of the reasons why this kind of fatty acid is so fluid and that fish have to have this is that they're in a cold ocean. And if they had bacon grease in their veins, they would coagulate and wouldn't be able to swim very well. So maintaining that. If ever you doubt your supplement, be it krill oil or a fish oil, one of the easiest things to do is to put it in the refrigerator. Put one of your little pills in the refrigerator. If it coagulates, it is full of contaminants that are probably unhealthy for your brain. And if it stays nice and liquid, you can do the same thing with virgin olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil will not thicken or coagulate when placed in the refrigerator. That's how you can tell its purity. Very simple kitchen trick.
Very interesting.
I don't feel good about I'm not going to have bacon again. I can't even look at it in the same way now.
Now that all we can see is the congealed stuff
That's all
in
I
the
can see.
skillet.
I can see it in my brain. I don't like it.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
That's right.
Well, I didn't.
And what are the best sources for the kinds of healthy oils you're talking about, other than supplements?
So we do like some of the natural oils. There's a lot of debate on different oils, but olive oils, other plant-based oils tend to be extremely healthy for the brain, whereas many of the animal-derived fats are full of saturated fats and not that they're have no benefits to them, but frequently when we eat in excess, so it's okay, back to bacon, yes, you can have a strip of bacon every now and then, but don't eat a pound of bacon a day. It wouldn't be good for you.
I got you. I got you.
Dr.
Great.
Jicha, is it a bad attitude if I say, okay, I already have a diagnosis? Like, what good is it? Why don't I just enjoy my time and I'll eat what I want? Bad move?
Two issues about that, and I think it's really important when we get to diet, is that diet in and of itself is not a predictor of who will develop Alzheimer's and who won't. And so we can have folks, and we do have folks, even living in those blue zones out there, who do everything right, who are eating all the right foods and can still come down with diseases like Alzheimer's. So the first thing is, we should never turn and penalize somebody who develops a memory problem saying you did bad things in your life and you got what was coming to you. No, these diseases of the brain are equal opportunity destroyers. Sometimes they just don't care.
Right.
And that's important. But a healthy diet is always good for the brain. So it doesn't matter, the game's not over when you start developing memory problems. If anything, we're at halftime and it's time to really dig in our heels and fight for that brain health and delay progression. Get that brain functioning in tip-top shape. Really, really important. And it's not just omega-3s. There are many different diets. We know that the benefits of fruits and vegetables, are just well understood and yet so poorly explored. There are a huge number of compounds in the simple fruits and vegetables that we eat that have amazing brain health properties. And so when we look at different diets, there are three that really kind of have bubbled to the surface, to use a cooking analogy, as long as we're talking about diet today. And that would be the Mediterranean diet.
Yeah.
And right, and we don't mean couscous and falafel. What we mean is
Darn.
rich in vegetables, olive
Olive
oils,
oil.
nuts, fish, low in red meats. Doesn't mean you can't have a steak every now and then, but try not to eat that every day. And the Mediterranean diet, very good for your general health. That's been modified over the years, and so there's a variant of that called the Mind diet.
More leafy foods. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, which specifically encourages things like berries and green leafy vegetables. And so berries are full of many different things. As a matter of fact, the component in red wine that was touted for years appears to be resveratrol. Resveratrol, a naturally occurring compound that grows in berries and grapes in their skin, and actually in the plants. It's designed to prevent molding and rotting of the fruit. But that in and of itself, we're very rich in all the berries that we eat. And of course, green leafy vegetables loaded with folate, which is incredibly important for the brain. If you're folate deficient, you will develop memory problems as well. And so that Mind diet is really honed in on what you can do to keep your mind healthy.
Hmm.
Now, the third diet, which is also a takeoff, is called the DASH diet. The DASH diet, very important for many of us, really focused on cardiovascular heart health risks. And so that diet is modified to remove a lot of the sodium, the salts that can drive blood pressure north. And remember that when it comes to memory and thinking problems as we age, it's frequently in the population, not just one thing. It's not just Alzheimer's or just vascular
Mhm.
dementia. There's frequently a little of this and a little of that. And we really need to be comprehensive when targeting those issues. So folks are often torn between, well, which diet do I pick? The Mediterranean, the Mind, or the DASH? And I think one has to look at their own risks. If you have a lot of heart health risks, you might want to veer a little bit to the DASH diet. And yeah, if you're developing memory problems, think about the Mind diet. If you've got some memory problems and vascular, maybe you want to try a combination of Mind and DASH together. Of course, that's how we cook. We don't just put one ingredient in a pot. We like to mix and match. It's the spice of life.
Love that.
I want the diet that has dessert and maybe a cocktail in advance. That one is there one of those, Dr. Jicha?
So actually, the Mediterranean diet advocates for a glass of wine a day. How
Okay,
about that?
I'm going for that one. Done. See the decisions we make in this room very quickly.
Right.
You had mentioned earlier, Dr. Chaka, that and I think it might be worthwhile to reiterate that even with the appearance of symptoms of cognitive decline, actually advanced or more advanced cognitive decline. I mean, well past MCI and into early stage or even mid stage dementia. That diet is still important because it's going to lessen the degree of decline. Um,
Yeah, I think that's an incredible, it really is an incredibly important point.
Mhm.
Now, sometimes as we develop, as we age in general, and as we develop memory decline, our tastes can change. People with Parkinson's lose their sense of smell, also a decrease in their sense of taste. The same can occur in folks with Alzheimer's disease. As we age in general, we tend to lose taste buds in our tongue, and those that are most resistant to the aging process in general are those that taste sweet. So, development of a sweet tooth. So, we do have to consider that our tastes are going to change, and that's okay, but there are ways to modify that. So, even in the more later stages of memory impairment, later stages of dementia, sometimes we do run into trouble with people maintaining sufficient nutrition, and right, then the brain needs that power.
Thought of that. Yeah.
So we need to think about things, So often think about, well, fruit is always good. Instead of a candy bar, how about a piece of fruit pie? Right? Yeah, we have to be
I like
creative.
how you think.
Uh,
That's good.
yeah,
I
yeah.
like your creative
Ice
thinking.
yeah, ice cream, natural ice cream, is just loaded with protein. Get the fruity kind with chunks of berries in it. Everybody loves ice cream. These are the things that we need to think about as we age, as our dietary preferences change. How do we modify to always maintain that? Because we really want, our brains are like classic cars. That's how I like to think of them. And the only way to keep a classic car in good shape is either park it in the garage and never use it, and that wouldn't be good for our brains, or maintain it. Right? Rebuild it, keep it up. And that's what we're trying to do with diet as we develop a memory problem. Even if that memory problem is getting worse, we want to keep it running in tip top shape.
Are you talking about berries? Are there any berries that are better than others, like strawberry compared to blueberries or so forth?
People go back and forth on that, and we've had different people, touting different berries. We often hear about the health benefits of blueberries. Blueberries are rich in antioxidants, but all berries really are rich in antioxidants. I do think, when it comes to diet, and this is something that's, we've actually not studied many berries individually. Blueberries are perhaps an exception. They've been studied independently, and show benefit for brain health. But all of the berries are going to have slightly different levels of the different phytochemicals in them that are so healthy for us. And so I actually think a berry mix is likely going to be most beneficial for us, because if we restrict our diet to only one type of food or one type of berry, we're going to get lots of what's in that berry, but whatever's low in that berry, we're not going to build up. So throw some blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, raspberries together and have a bowl.
Sounds great.
Sounds great.
Dr. Jicha, and I know we're limited with time, but I think just talking about can cholesterol really affect the brain?
Yeah, really important. As a matter of fact, many people don't realize this, but the brain contains more cholesterol than any other organ of the body. Cholesterol is a key component. We need cholesterol for health, whereas we need the omega-3 fatty acids to make parts of nerve cells dynamic to form new connections. We also need to maintain the structure of the nerve cells and the connections. And a little bit of cholesterol mixed in with the lipid membrane, the fatty part that encases a nerve cell, provides a lot of stability and rigidity. And so cholesterol is incredibly important. Now, too much cholesterol bad for you. And so we break down cholesterol typically into good versus bad cholesterol. A lot of work, we debate back and forth which is more important, but most of the evidence seems really to weigh in on it's that bad cholesterol, what we call the LDL, the low density lipoprotein. And so if your LDL is high, we really need to work to try to get that down to prevent heart attack, to prevent stroke, and other disorders. If our good cholesterol is too low, then we want to get that up as well, because there is a ratio that we also look at. Now, there has been a lot of debate in the field on cholesterol lowering medicines. If possible, diet and exercise are the best way to manage your cholesterol, but we can't always do that. Sometimes we
Right.
inherit high cholesterol from mom and dad, and we do need a medicine. There's been a lot of back and forth on some of the medicines, statins in particular. Do they cause dementia or do they prevent against dementia? And so there's a wealth of population-based data that suggests that people that are treated with statins actually have a lower risk of dementia. There are other studies that show no, it really doesn't matter. And when we actually have done studies with statins, we've also gotten variable results. And so the situation is much more complex. We really don't know. How low do we need to have that cholesterol level? How long might we need to take a statin to see benefits or potential risks? But if you need a statin because your cholesterol is high, to prevent heart attack, to prevent stroke, especially in midlife. It is very important that you get that cholesterol under control. And so I take a statin every day because I have high cholesterol that I just can't control with diet and exercise alone. Because I tell you this, if you have memory problems, even if they're related to something like Alzheimer's or Lewy body disease, if you have a heart attack or a stroke, that isn't going to help your memory and thinking. As a matter of fact, it's going to be a driving force in taking you down. So I think it's very important for us to weigh the risks and balance. And as we talk about diet, this is one of the complex things here is everything in moderation. Let's get a variety. Let's reduce, although we don't have to make ourselves miserable, giving up every food that may not be the healthiest for us. Just let's limit that and let's increase what's really healthy for the brain. So I wish I had a more definitive answer on the cholesterol story, but I do think there's a lot of debate that remains in the field over how best to manage cholesterol, knowing that it's both essential and in too high of quantities harmful as well.
I can't wait to tell everybody that Dr. Jicha said it's okay to have cherry pie. I think that's what I heard. And if the pie's not available, then it's okay to have cherry ice cream
With chunks on
with chunks on it. Dr. Jicha, thank you so much for joining us today. Could not thank you enough. And we look forward to speaking to you again next week on our next podcast. So thank you. What a great day this has been. Thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you all, Lori, Dennis, Bob, and SuAnne. It's really been a pleasure chatting with you today.
Thank you.